Welcome, everyone. Nice to see you all. Tonight we've got a pretty simple agenda. We're going to, at our last meeting, we made some small changes to the articles. I can't remember if anything was huge that would be of great concern, but we will obviously review those now because the changes went to the various boards. And our job now is to listen to the comments from the boards and to adjust the articles as if we see fit. And then ideally approve or not approve to have them sent up to the Board of Education so we can start the process of them considering the articles and then potentially having the folks in all of our towns consider whether they're worthy of their upvote or downvote. So they're also, what we're also going to review as part of that, and I think we'll go through all the 4 towns' comments. We'll ask Lyle and perhaps Frank, but I think primarily Lyle, to share comments from Donna Russo-Savage. Remember the last few times we did this, she shared, sort of small and large comments with us. They're all very small little grammatical changes. There might be one that is worthy of more discussion. But Lyle has also spoken with Chris Leopold about a couple things. So we'll go through the 4 town comments and then we'll have Lyle share Donna Russo-Savage's and also that Chris Leopold has any. My suggestion is rather than going through every comment as we share them, that we go through all of them and then we'll decide which ones we want to review and perhaps change. Does that make sense, everyone? I'm just trying to expedite it. Dummerston had several, and we have those printed out, their comments. So we decided it would be easier just to share those. And you'll go through those, right? But just so that they're in front of us. So that's the heart of the meeting. And then we'll talk schedule and the calendar at the end of the meeting. Is there anything else we want to add on the agenda? But obviously we're going to open it up to you guys at the very start. Yeah. Oh.
Just make sure that we all understand two alternatives, advisory and necessary for every town, and how that works forward. Because we were going to talk about it last time, we didn't. So just so we make a comment to make sure we all understand.
Well, would it help I would imagine that boards will have shared their concern about that article, if it was a concern. So can we address it with each board? Does that make sense?
Well, only in that our understanding is there really wasn't any choice. But we can't take it forward if we put people on as advisory.
We can take it forward. If someone decides their town wants to be advisable, we can list them as advisable and send it. It doesn't move forward if that town that's listed as advisable votes the merger down, then that would stop the process. But I don't think that it's something that we're going to need to spend time on tonight.
So why don't we add that to the agenda at the end if it seems like if you would like to talk about it at that point. Sound good, everyone? Okay, so let's open it to folks who are sitting here if you would like to speak. And then hopefully, as usual, there'll be time for you guys to chime in at the end with comments or concerns at the very end. Does anyone want to speak? Okay, so we've got 2 folks. Is there a piece of paper that's going around?
Yes.
Yep, okay. So do you write your names as usual? When you stand, and why don't you start first, and then it can be.
Yep. All right. Sean Murphy from Guilford.
I don't think I will ask my questions, but I do have 7 questions that I presume a lot of them will be answered in the meeting, and it just has to do with the timeline of the petitions, the votes, all kinds of things, which I think you're probably going to touch on. So if you could come back to me at the end of the meeting, I'll ask whatever I don't have filled up.
Thanks, Sean. We
Thank
will
you.
do that at the very end, reviewing the schedule on the calendar. As most folks know, as we discussed it at the last meeting, this morning we had a meeting with the town clerks and discussed the calendar.
Yep.
Jody Normando Dummerston. And I'm speaking for myself, but I'm also speaking for what I think Dummerston likes or dislikes. One of the things about the Articles of Agreement, there are several things that are not palatable, to me anyway. First of all, there's no realistic way to get out of a merger. The only way we can do it is the 1950s way that Vernon did. And so I still think we should have something in it. A town will have no right to vote on whether or not their school will be closed, is not palatable to us. We'll no longer have a locally elected school board. We will have no control on helping our middle schoolers, on keeping our middle schoolers or any other grades. They can be moved at will by the big board. Dummerston would no longer own our school or our playing fields. We would not vote on our school budget. There would be an over $57 million budget voted on by Australian ballot, and one that no one can understand. It's hard enough to understand just the high school now. And without our control, values probably would go down in Dummerston, as the school would not be the same school as it is now. One of the big ones, we'd lose community connection to our schools and children, because people just won't volunteer I don't believe they'll volunteer like they do now. And another one is there is no solid evidence that equity would be improved. There's no solid evidence that it would end up saving any money. In fact, it would probably cost more money. It's all a guess of the study committee and the administration. And there's no solid evidence that outcomes would be improved. Dummerston School has very good outcomes, and several of our other schools in the area have good outcomes. Everything, all the stuff in this Articles of Agreement are pure speculation. We don't know, we won't know until we get into it, and once we get into it, we can't get out. Thank you.
Thank you, Jody. Would anyone like to respond to Jody or discuss anything? So what I'm passing out are the 24, the ones that were, the articles that were slightly changed today. I think these have the Donna Russo Savage notes that are underlined. But we're not going to discuss those first. Okay, I'm going to suggest that we start with Brattleboro Union High School's comments, then Brattleboro, then Dummerston, Guilford, and Putney. Does that work for everyone?
Yeah, we as a board don't really have anything.
You're good?
Yeah.
All right, thank you very much. Brattleboro,
As a board, we have no comments.
okay?
We did have a communication to send back to you all, just to make sure you know, that as a board, we decided 2 meetings ago that it was prudent to look at any other alternative structures that anyone else is thinking of. And that David and Kim will go to meetings with Dummerston if they would have them, but just so we knew what other people were thinking about.
Okay.
As there's no, it's not a vote of lack of confidence in the Articles of Agreement, but being prudent in a case something that doesn't go through,
Right.
because there's very little time from the one voting date to the other deadline.
Thank you. Okay, Dummerston.
Okay, well, we had a long meeting on the 15th that went through. We heard a lot of Jody's comments. She submitted a written list, which the board reviewed, and then what ended up being approved in terms of, by the Dummerston Board, were the items that you have a printout on. So on page 2, last full paragraph, second to last line, add will lead all students.
Page 2 of the Articles of Agreement.
Yes. I'm assuming these are still all the same page numbers.
So far, I've been
So far?
going through it now. It's at the bottom of page 2, the bottom of the last full paragraph,
Yep,
the last sentence.
yeah.
So just go through them, Amy, and then we'll.
So, okay, so there was that one on page 2. Page 3, the first lines specifically reference the WSESU budget that is not currently voted on by the taxpayers in terms of the promoting transparency and accountability. And then that first full paragraph reference the increased opportunities specifically, increased opportunities. And then in the last paragraph, last sentence, replace the sentence that says the property tax relief offered during the first 4 years of operation and the transition grant will lessen the burden to our taxpayers. And replace that with the incentive funds to taxpayers in the unified district will offset additional expenses that could be incurred as the result of unification. The board felt that that was more appropriate because it's not property tax relief, it's transition incentives. And then on page 4, add details of the $300,000 savings for special education when that was centralized, just, broad categories. And then Article 1, we specifically discussed Dummerston as necessary or advisable, and the board felt they would like to see Dummerston remain listed as necessary. And then finally, well, almost finally, on page 7, Article 7, Section D, the board felt that it would be good to add a vote by the town on school closure and grade 7 relocation to another site. And then in the second paragraph, second to the last line, delete that entire sentence because continued educational equity is required.
I mean, I don't understand that, and then add vote, how would it read then, where is it?
I didn't specifically insert it, that is what they would like to see. A town vote on school closure, the affected town and any grade 7 or 8 movement. And then that, the line that I'm talking about is, let's see.
The second paragraph, Amy, I think
Yep.
the last sentence.
Yep, second paragraph, last sentence. That talks about, no, it's actually second to last. The Unified District Board will thoroughly review the school's ability to maintain continued educational equity. We have to do that anyway, so why are we saying that? They thought that was confusing. And then, page 10, Article 15, fourth paragraph. It's the paragraph that says, within the first year, the Dummerston Board would like to see 2 words added after the first year, those being and ongoing, to signify commitment that, there'd be attempts to have dialogue. So, and that was all that they approved.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Guilford, any notes?
We were in favor of, as a whole board, seeing.
With the language.
Yeah, with the language, we were fine with that.
Putney was also fine with the language. So can we now go through Donna Russo Savage's language and then we'll go through, you know, spend time on each one we want to address.
You have extra copies of those?
You have them. I passed over 4 copies of the articles to you guys.
I think that, Jody, I believe the notes are in,
They're incorporated
they're
in there.
incorporated in the articles that we're gonna go
And
over.
this-
Yeah, the ones that are,
They're underlined.
Yes.
So in order to keep us somewhat sane about the
Thank you.
changes,
You're welcome.
I got rid of all the highlighting, all the bold, and this time any proposed changes are underlined, okay? Just keep it. So, the first change that Donna Russo Savage suggested was on the cover page, just to include a brief explanation of Vernon's participation at the beginning and then the withdrawal. And so you can see at the bottom of page 1, just a statement that they had started out and then when found that they would not be able to retain school choice, they, as outlined in Act 49, withdrew and then their withdrawal, affirmative withdrawal vote. So that's on the cover page. Page 3 is the next change. It's the second, now we'll see if you all
Full
know.
paragraph, yeah.
It's the second full paragraph. I used to teach this second.
Oh, that's true.
Second paragraph. And that one is changing the current complex financial assessment methodology, needing to match program costs in the separate Wyndham Southeast Supervisory Union districts. So we had that something different. We need to change that to Wyndham Southeast Supervisory Union districts. On page 4 is the next one. Second paragraph, reductions in the homestead education tax rate. Donna Russo Savage said we should cite exactly where that came from, and that's 0.8 cents per Act 46, Section 6. So that's inserted. The next one is also on page 4, just below that. Being more specific as to what we're talking about, examples of cost savings, we had that. And then instead it's examples of cost savings as mentioned in the paragraphs above. And I can still add in the paragraphs above, but mentioned above. There were some naming issues. And you'll remember last time I went through and changed most of it, but we cannot name it Wyndham Southeast Supervisory Unified District, which is I think one of the things we had. The suggestion is we name it rename ourselves Wyndham Southeast Unified District, or WSEUD. And except for the very first one that I missed, all the others throughout this have been changed to WSEUD. So I will go back in that first paragraph in Articles of Agreement section and change the WSESD to WSEUD. Donna Russo Savage said we have to, when we're talking about the necessary forming districts, we have to include Brattleboro Union High School, but state, as it's stated here, Brattleboro Union High School District is also necessary, but per statute, its interests are represented by the town's, I've lost my place, town school districts. So that's an addition. That was, I'm just page
Four and
4, right at
five.
the very bottom. Very last line going into top of page 5.
Thank you.
The very first paragraph, full paragraph on page 5, there were a couple of changes. This is again to make sure that the articles reflect that Vernon voted per Act 49. And then there's the last sentence in that first paragraph, first full paragraph. On August 21st, 2017, the Brattleboro Union High School District Board voted that Vernon has satisfied their financial obligations to Brattleboro Union High School and there is no further debt. Vernon is not entitled to any future assets. So to make sure it's very clear in here that Vernon understands that they are not entitled to assets, but everybody else understands that their debt is
So Lyle,
satisfied.
a point, just a question point. So as of right now, August 21st, Vernon's out.
We can come to that in a bit, but this was,
Even if we don't merge, Vernon's out. That's my question.
yeah, yeah,
So, this, everything goes into effect July 1, 2019, this merger. And the Vernon withdrawal with UHS also refers to July 1, no later than July 1, 2019. So, they deliberately considered that question, a good question that you raised, and they are essentially saying we will not change our status within Wyndham Southeast or in UHS until July of 2019.
So if merger doesn't happen, Vernon's still in. If nothing changes, Vernon is still in.
I didn't think that's what they asked their taxpayers to vote on. What was the vote?
So they did use the word no later than, so that they could, if there was a request from their electorate to advance the separation from DUHS, they could. Their deliberations have been, it accomplishes nothing, and it actually reduces their choices in the event of the unknown result of the November vote on the merger district. So they're saying they would rather understand what the environment looks like in terms of the school potential partners before they separate. So they gave themselves a no later than date, so they could have all the choices available.
But this says that as of August 21st,
so this actually says that's the date on which Brattleboro voted to release them. It doesn't say.
That was the date that we, BUHS number 6, voted to allow them to leave.
And
It's not the date that they were gone, it's the date that we voted to do that, to agree to the agreement.
So to clarify that, I don't know if it's necessary as long as we have this conversation, but to clarify, what happened on August 21st is the BUHS board voted to approve the withdrawal agreement. And that withdrawal agreement has, it's a couple 3-page document, and one of the provisions in that says this goes into effect no later than July 2019.
So on or before June 30th, 2019, as determined by the State Board of Education, Vernon shall relinquish, release, abandon all of its right, title, claim, interest. So they have until that date.
The other thing they wanted to see how it plays out is what will the State Board of Ed do on September 20th? So just another unknown that they'd rather not make take a change in their own governance status without knowing the landscape that they're facing.
Okay, sounds good.
The language though makes it, so in that underlined sentence, it says that at this point, Vernon has satisfied their financial obligations to the Union High School, and there's no further debt and no further assets, but that's really not true until,
No, that's what the agreement says, that they have
well, that
signed
means
and
that they're not
said.
paying anything to us anymore.
Well, this year they are, and next year, if they've decided that they're gonna hold off a little bit longer, they will.
That's not what it said.
Yes,
That's not what it says.
Can we we're gonna go through the entire article, so obviously this is one we want to come back to.
And this, I assume this was Donna's
Yeah,
suggestion?
I think, yeah, it might be a date issue and.
You're asking to clarify her.
Well,
The
and
fee of
I was
the-
gonna say, based on Donna's suggestion, I would end that sentence after, the vote part and leave out the whole thing about the debt thing, because basically all it does is it refers to that agreement.
And
And
can
let's
we put something
let
like that
it refer to the agreement
Okay.
and not put anything that's stated in the agreement, in the articles of agreement for the merger, because that just muddies the water.
Yeah, okay.
That would take care of the whole question.
Yep.
We can come back to it if we need to, but let's, simple.
Article 3, further down on page 5, the dates were incorrect. At that time, there was no negotiated agreement with the teachers. As of now, there is a negotiated agreement with teachers and staff, so that is in place until June 30, 2020. And then the other date that had to be changed there it had said June 30th, 2017. That is now June 30th, 2019. WSEUD again on that page, but all of those have been changed. Turning over to Article 7, page 6, and continuing on to page 7, it was just a style thing. Article 6 has each of the paragraphs in parentheses with a lowercase letter. And the Article 7 had each paragraph indented with a number, so Donna asked to have those changed so that they were consistent within each article, so those are changed. Article 8 is not something from Donna, it's from Chris Leopold. This is the only thing that may need to come back to be changed. I sent Chris Leopold our 2010 census numbers, and he has to check those census numbers against what we have listed for board members. I have not heard back from him in a couple of days to know whether or not we need to make any changes there, but that's the one area we're still waiting for confirmation.
But our census hasn't changed much since,
I would imagine. I think we based our first numbers on that, and
I don't think we've had a sudden influx into anywhere or outgo.
top of page 9, Donna Russo Savage talked about meetings. We need to have a meeting in the spring of 2018 and the spring of 2019. The 2019 one will be one where we have to present a budget. 2018 would be one just to come together to talk about governance and structure. And obviously, we do not have those dates, so we can just say dates to be determined. Article 12, let's see, it's the,
I'm sorry, I'm confused on one thing.
yep,
So the last sentence of Article 11 is talking about until the merger is actually in place, because otherwise there are no school districts of all of them. So that's the point of having that in there.
I'm not understanding your question.
So the top of page 9, the last sentence in Article 11. Provided, however, it's like the third line up. Provided, however, that the exercise of such authority by the unified district shall not be construed to limit or alter the authority and or responsibilities of the school districts of. So, I guess I'm confused as exactly when the merger takes place and those other school boards end.
That's a question I can ask her. She made no comment on that not being correct, so I don't know.
So what is our understanding for the moment? The vote happens in November, and I thought we had to be formed by July 1st of the next year.
Well, if you look at Article 12, that answers that, I think the beginning of Article 12 answers your question, Joe.
We don't need to be formed until 2019.
So you would continue with the other boards for a whole year,
And it will say
which is
that
different than what we've been talking about up to now, right?
Article 12 designates that all former boards have completed all of their business, and it gives the date no later than January 31st, 2020.
And there was always gonna be some overlap.
Yes.
Right, but I thought it was much less. I mean, 2020 is 3
Well,
years from now.
it really, the dates were always sort of a moving target, so I think it fluctuated every single time we did this.
Well, I
because
guess I
of the
took the
dates.
dates off of the law that was
Right.
originally had to have it by 2017, July.
That
One.
was accelerated.
You
And
had
then,
That was accelerated.
to vote, but not to form.
And it had to be formed by the 2019.
Yeah. That's what this continues to do. Okay.
So looking at Article 12, the last sentence in Article 12 in that paragraph, the Wyndham Southeast Supervisory Union, upon designation of the Unified District as a supervisory district pursuant to 721, that is added. And it's just to name which section of the statute it's referring to. And the other is Article 15, also on page 9. The very first line, the Unified District Board, it used to say the Supervisory Union District Board, so it's the Unified District Board. Looking at page 10, underneath the bulleted section, where it starts with staff members, again, that was changed to the Unified District Board Chair. And the next following paragraph, Unified District Board. Those are Donna's changes.
So do we want to go back through this page by page and look at Donna and Dummerston's points? Or are there particular ones you guys want to look at?
I guess for expedience, my question would be if anyone has problems with any of the comments from Donna or from Dummerston, then look at the ones that we have concerns about. And a lot of these are really small.
So since we just talked about Donna's, does anyone have any particular concerns about any of Donna's? Okay.
Well, I think the
Yeah.
Article 1,
Yeah.
that change about the whole vote,
Yes.
I think I would change, I did a little scribble here, I don't know if
Yeah.
it's grammatically correct, we can wordsmith it, but I was just thinking that, starting with Donna's change, that on August 21st, 2017, the Brattleboro Union High School District Board voted, and then I crossed out everything else she wrote and said to agree to the Vernon separation agreement. That we voted to the Vernon separation agreement. And then that would just refer to that agreement.
And probably that should be attached to the
Right,
Yeah,
yeah.
I can, yeah.
And then I got rid of
They have
everything
it.
else that she wrote on that article.
Good, thanks for cleaning
That makes
up
sense?
for us.
Yes.
Okay,
That eliminates the questions Christina and I were hopefully about. Right, Christina?
Yes,
Yes,
absolutely.
no, that's good. Anything else, guys?
Anything else from Donna's?
I'm not on Donna's side, on Dummerston.
Well, let's stick on Donna's
Yeah,
until
sorry.
we're done. We're good. We're good with Donna? Okay, now Dummerston's. I mean, so with Dummerston, we're not changing these. It's if we want to put any of these in.
Yep.
Okay?
Yeah. I just, on the page 3 ones, the last one, I just wanna read through that in my own head at least, with what Dummerston's suggesting,
Yep.
to see what.
Why don't you do
that's-
it for all of us?
Okay, let me just,
It can be in all of our heads, Rick.
the last paragraph, last sentence. Okay. So it would replace the property tax relief offered during the first 4 years of operation, and the transitional grant will lessen the burden to our taxpayers. And that would be changed to the incentive funds to taxpayers in the unified district will be offset additional expenses that could be incurred as a result of unification.
And that's based on Secretary Holcomb saying that it's not property tax relief, it's transition,
And yes, transitional.
offset costs.
Yeah.
And it's referencing taxpayers and the 150,000 that might be available to the supervisory union.
Right.
The Unified district.
Yeah. Now that I've read it a couple times, I'm good
Yeah,
with it,
I
I
don't
just,
see a problem.
I don't see a problem with it either, I just wanted to
Yep.
read through it, cause we were going through them a little quick.
You're okay with taking Dummerston's suggestion?
It
Yeah.
seems to match what we were
Yep.
told by
Yeah.
Secretary
Sure.
Holcomb quite well.
Everyone's good? Yep.
Yep.
Okay. Anything else from Dummerston that you wanna?
Page 2, the all, doesn't seem fine.
Yep.
I
Last
just felt
paragraph.
it sounded like we are not meeting the educational quality standards anywhere now when you read it, and so when you say all students, it makes it part of the equity.
It's right here.
Oh, it's not quite
one paragraph.
Everyone in agreement that that works?
Yep. Yes.
Okay, anything else from Dummerston?
Trying to see the page. Specifically reference WSESU. That's the one we just changed. The three.
I mean, it looks like on the page 4, it looks like we have the examples in there now, but.
But on page 3, first line specifically reference, where is that?
That is,
Where did you put this in?
it says flexibility to adjust staffing assignments to maximize students-to-teacher ratio and retain our high-quality staff and promote transparency and accountability. That last, and promote transparency and accountability, we thought could be expanded upon to specifically reference the SU budget that is not voted on by taxpayers, because that's, one of the advantages of.
So it would almost be a separate sentence than,
No, I mean, you could promote transparency and accountability. We didn't come up with any specific wording, but
With the-
so if we go back and read the whole sentence, it's a kind of a long sentence already.
a unified district will allow more flexibility to adjust staffing assignments to maximize student-teacher ratio and retain our high-quality staff and promote transparency and accountability. I mean, we could break it into a different sentence.
I would actually advocate for making those bulleted items, even if you're wanting to point that out, because these are the main points that we've said are good about the merger. More flexibility to adjust staffing assignments and maximize student-teacher ratio. So you could even break them out in individual, I don't care, it's wordsmithing, but will allow, bullet, more flexibility to adjust staffing assignments, maximizing student-teacher ratios, and the second bullet, retaining high-quality staff, and then promote transparency and accountability, and then you could put in another bullet and note specifically the SU budget would have more viewings, eyes, whatever. Here's
be a
Richard
vote.
when we need it.
Because the SU budget is now not voted on by the
Right,
taxpayers.
and put that in there too, but
Yeah.
currently that budget's not voted on, but this would be allowed, so it's like a bullet list of things. The purpose of this document, I'm not sure anymore. I mean, it's a legal document that structures everything. If the other purpose of this document is to make it clear to the state and to anybody who reads it what we think are the advantages of the merger, then adding in those sorts of statements makes it a stronger document.
So I have SU budget will be voted on by the electorate?
It's not.
Or- I think you'd say,
Yes, you both.
yeah, line items
Pertaining.
previously, or,
Budget.
yeah.
Previously pertaining to all schools would now be viewed as a part of the whole budget.
Yeah.
As opposed to the,
Right.
oh, yes,
Yeah,
It is muddy, that's very muddy.
Yes.
Where's Richard?
yeah.
Okay, somebody's gonna help me with that one. 'Cause
I don't think we need a third bullet. I mean, we could just keep going on and on with that list.
Right, I was thinking there's more things you could put on there, that's why I'm asking what the purpose of the
I
document
think
is.
it was to clarify, the board was asking actually, well, what happens, how will transparency and accountability be increased in a merged district with a much larger budget when you have fewer local representatives that people are connected to? So when the public reads it without understanding our thought process, well, that doesn't make any sense. And so Lyle said, well, no, that's because the SU budget will be voted on and that's clearly an accountability issue because you can vote on the budget. So that sentence to the board members who haven't been following every detail on this document, we're like, oh, okay, now I understand. So I think if board members aren't able to understand it, it would be nice to have a clarifying, comma, specifically being able to vote on the supervisory union budget, which has previously been approved by boards and not approved by the public.
So promote transparency and accountability such as,
Yes.
Well, you don't wanna say such as, because there is no supervisory meeting, it's eliminated.
well, the previous, yeah.
Yeah, that's getting, such as
It is getting
expensive.
muddy, but we could just promote transparency and
Promote
accountability.
transparency, keep it simple, that, because you don't wanna go backwards.
So we're talking about 3 bullets?
So what are the bullets?
I have
Let's read it.
more
So if we're not
flexibility.
adding anything, do we need to change it
Exactly,
all to
you
the
don't
bullet
need to
points,
add
or can we just leave it as
We're
is?
not gonna add.
Let's leave it as is.
I think it's one of those things when we're talking to people and they ask, that is part of what we were trying to get to when we talked about it in the video as well. That would be something that we would highlight in our communications prior to the vote. So we're not doing that.
I think, I hear what you're saying about wanting the clarification, but it seems like any verbiage we can come up with just makes it messier.
What about the increased, we didn't do that one yet, right? Increased opportunities on page 3 for. First full paragraph, where is the,
What do you
where would the
wanna-
word increased go?
Because we do consolidate some purchasing and we do share some personnel, so we thought it would be good to clarify that.
So where would it go though? Where would the word be put in?
Wait, what are you talking about?
Can I make one?
Yes.
Yeah.
So if we're gonna leave it as is, how about we do a unified district will allow more flexibility to adjust staffing assignments to maximize student-teacher ratio and retain our high-quality staff and promote transparency and accountability with voters able to approve all supervisory district expenses.
District expenses.
Yeah, or unified district expenses.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That works?
That's good,
All right,
yeah.
that keeps it
That's
simple.
good,
and-
yeah.
Did
And it
you-
gets to the point of what people are wanting.
So do we have that language written down?
I wrote it down.
Good.
So I was on the next line. First full paragraph reference increased opportunities. Where would that word go?
Hang on, I'm on this one still.
Sorry, I'm now lost. Where's she?
Yeah, where are you?
So, first,
On page 3,
Yep.
Yeah.
the second bullet, well, not bullet, but first full paragraph, reference increased opportunities.
Where is that? We don't. Yeah, but where are they looking to put it in? That's what I wanna know.
consolidating custodial services, including increased opportunities for purchasing of supplies and sharing of personnel is an additional area of potential cost savings.
And so the difference to you all in Dummerston was that we already are sharing and we wanna acknowledge that, and so to make it clear, that was the point. I don't have a problem with that. Anybody else want that?
I don't think it's necessary, but we can certainly.
If it makes them happy, I'm fine.
I don't think it hurts either way.
Yeah, so what is it gonna read? Christina?
Consolidated custodial services including increased opportunities for
Okay,
purchasing,
yeah.
right?
Yes.
Yep.
Page 4. Provide details, we said we already did that, right?
Okay, anything else?
Article 1, keep Dummerston necessary. Are we at the point of talking about keeping Dummerston as necessary advisory now?
Yeah,
They say they want to be necessary.
yep.
So is this at the point of talking about what that means?
Well, hold on, is there anything else from Dummerston we want to discuss? Are we
Going
satisfied?
down the line.
Can we just finish the?
Prefer to go through the list of everything. Christine, is there anything else you want us to look at?
The equity paragraph, that you have to maintain education. We've been round and round on this paragraph, and
Where are you, which page?
so, sorry, page 7.
Second paragraph.
Second,
Second to last, the
Line.
unified district board will thoroughly review the school's ability to maintain continued educational equity. The Dummerston board felt that is just what we have to do by law, and it was did not need to be said. And it was confusing having it in there.
I think that's just a reassurance that this is what we're going to do versus, implying that we're not doing it. That's
think-
why I put it in there.
I think the worry in Dummerston's point was that people would think that by consolidating, schools could be losing equity, and that's completely the opposite of what we're all trying.
Yeah,
The review the school's ability to maintain continued educational equity, it's a requirement that we maintain educational equity in the schools.
Yeah, that was the board's point, it wasn't, yeah,
So you have to maintain educational equity.
yeah.
So if you're making it, it's very confusing to the reader if you're saying, oh, well, think about if they can maintain equity because we're required to maintain equity, so that paragraph makes it quite
So
confusing.
I think I'm the one who wrote this originally, although who knows by now.
It's been rewritten many times.
But the way I took this and read it was, when you were going to close a school, it's written to me more like what Alice is saying as a reassurance that before any closure would be made, that would be one of the main things to be looked at yet again. And if you couldn't maintain equity by closing, if in any way that was disruptive, you couldn't close that school. That was the point. It's meant to be a reassurance that, okay, we have equity, now this board is saying, we're gonna close this school. And so, wait a minute, what's the effect on that? Is there a change in equity? And this
And
is all.
what do you define the equity as in that?
Well, this was also at the time that we were also talking about whether if we had such a low number of students, would it be, is it equitable anymore?
Yeah, it's not equitable anymore, and we would know as a school that it was probably time to do it ourselves, make it happen, closing a school versus being forced to. We'd all kind of know before. So I think this is just kind of a reassurance versus, I don't think it's intended that we're not making sure that we're providing equity.
So your idea of equity in that sentence is that you have enough students in the classroom to run programs effectively because teaching a class of 3, that's what I'm not able to, as I read that sentence, it's like, wait a minute, we have to maintain equity in programming. That's a requirement. And so by closing a school, the equity would be in the school bus times for children, if we close that school. That's what I'm
You look at everything.
You look at the whole.
So say you close one school and now you suddenly have 100 kids that you're gonna put in, or you're gonna suddenly swamp another school and they can no longer provide the quality of education that you expect because you've overloaded this school, or.
Well, it says review the school's ability, not
Yeah.
the district's ability to maintain equity. It says that school's ability, so.
As well.
Well, maybe it should be the district.
Maybe you can change that part. I mean, it was,
So the district would make more sense if that's what you're
Yep.
saying, because you're talking about the closed school, so it's not,
well, that's where Alice is getting at that originally, it was part of the school that
Yeah,
was being closed.
It was,
Are you holding that equity? Are you able to give that anymore because of the size of that school? And then, as you're going to close it, what does that mean for the equitable distribution of all the other educational opportunities? Are you able to still maintain those if you suddenly put a bunch of kids in another school?
Does replacing the word school with district satisfy concern?
Yeah, I think.
I understand
I think that
how that
fits
would be
there.
more satisfying. Okay, that works for everyone?
Yep.
Okay.
Then
Anything
page-
else from
What was page 10?
Dummerston?
10
10 of the fourth paragraph?
Yeah, and ongoing.
It makes it sound like leadership councils only have to engage within the first year. I don't think that was our intent.
Yeah, it wasn't, I'm not sure where that within the first year came from in that paragraph, it seems misplaced.
Or get rid of it, the unified.
Yeah, I think you should just say the Unified District Board shall actively.
It's
Well, I think- yeah.
it's my memory that people were concerned that the unified board could just sit back and not do it.
Yeah, I think
So
that
that
was
was
that.
intentional
that-
language.
Ensure that it did get done.
Yeah, that it
And
happened
it
within the
got done
first year.
quickly.
Yeah, that they didn't wait 5 years to create it, you know.
No, but when people read it cold, it
Mhm.
makes it, it
It
just
makes
is
it seem
within
like
the
they
first
only
year.
have to do it
Within the first year, and then
So
you're
I think
done.
maybe it was not shall actively engage, but it was more create and make sure they exist. That's what we were really saying, isn't it?
Right.
That was my explanation to the board, that that was the intention. But when somebody reads it cold, it makes it sound like within the first year they shall act, that's,
So is there a problem changing that verb engage to shall create, take out actively?
I think we need to leave it with the engaged and just add the and ongoing.
Yeah,
That's
within the
fine.
first year.
Okay.
Is everyone comfortable with that? Simple?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Now we go back to advisable and necessary.
We can certainly. What do you want to talk about, Jill? Something with regards to Dummerston? Dummerston,
No, I just
speak
want
to
to,
that.
on camera, everybody understand exactly what it means to be advisable or to be necessary and what our options are. Because I've gone back and forth in my understanding throughout 2 years. So somebody who knows can tell me.
So I'm going to try.
Go for it.
Okay. So at this point, all towns have voted that they want to be considered necessary, which means that these.
All town school boards.
All town school boards, yes.
Actually, that's not true. We didn't vote at all. We didn't discuss it.
Okay,
But
so,
if I can, but Brattleboro doesn't have an option.
right, Brattleboro has to be necessary.
We have to be necessary just
Yes.
because of population.
Yes. And.
To
yeah,
meet
no
the
choice.
rules.
The other,
of the law.
yeah,
You
the
have
other
no
towns
choice.
can't go without us, so Brattleboro
To
has
meet
to.
the rules of the law.
Yeah,
Yes.
Brattleboro has
This
to.
is exactly what I want to lay out so that everybody understands why we're making the decision that we're making. I'm not saying the decision's wrong, I just want to make sure we're all clear.
Hmm?
So the decision we're making is because each of the other town boards decided that they want to be included as necessary in these articles of agreement.
Putney did.
Necessary,
You go for good, you guys didn't record that.
they did quite a while ago, actually.
Well, I'm saying a long
We
time
did.
ago, we did.
Putney did about a year and a half, yeah.
Yeah, about the
Okay.
same time.
Yeah. Necessary means that it will be warned and it will go to the electorate to be voted on. If any town had said they wanted to be considered advisable, then it would have been up to the school board to decide whether or not they wanted to warn the articles and send it to a vote of the electorate. Unless there was a petition by a certain percentage of the people on the, in the town, on the list, and those, if they could petition the board to have to send it to the electorate. That's my understanding.
Okay, then just to clarify and keep out, moving that all forward. So then as we put this forward and everybody is necessary, then any one town that votes no means none of us go forward.
Correct. There is still the opportunity, if a town votes no, for there to be a petition to come forward to do a revote. And that, actually, do you want me to report out?
Yeah.
We talked with Chris Leopold today, after we met with the town clerks, because there were some questions. So if one town votes no, and there's a petition to revote, do all the other towns need to revote? And that is no. Just the town that voted no with a petition. All the other towns, if they voted yes, they stayed yes. And then the other question was, do we revote board members? And that's no. The only option is to petition to revote the article on merger. So the board members would stay as voted. We had a question about the at-large, and we talked about this very early on, about the at-large and commingling ballots and not. And according to Chris Leopold, those ballots are not commingled. The town clerks count them and send those tallies to the Agency of Education. The Agency of Education tabulates all the ballots from all the towns and then reports back to us the results of those at-large votes.
Good? So,
so just for the at-large people, the agency of education counts the votes, the town clerks don't count the votes.
They count them and send the results.
Oh, send
To
the
double
results,
check,
okay,
And so they can report it.
okay.
And then the agency of ed will tabulate all the town at large.
Okay.
So I suggest we vote on this with all of the small changes, and then we talk about the schedule and the calendar, and how we talk to our community about this. I think there's a lot of,
When we're voting on this, are we voting to send it
yes,
as stated? That
with
with the
the
changes?
changes.
Okay. I just wanna clarify.
Is that your motion?
I would like to make a motion that we vote on the articles of agreement with the changes as stated, this evening.
I second.
To the Agency of Education.
Agency of Education, yes.
You second that. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
You guys all voted aye. I voted aye. Okay. No
Unanimous
abstentions or,
vote,
or what?
unanimous vote.
It was a unanimous vote. Okay, so that's,
Can you remind me the time frame now? They're gonna look at it and,
so we're gonna talk about that right now. Do you wanna talk us through
Sure.
that?
I might need Frank or Alice's reminders,
Yeah.
but this is what I have. The articles will be on the agenda of the September 20th Agency of Education meeting. The other thing on that agenda, well, there are many things on the agenda, I'm sure, but one other thing is going to be the withdrawal vote from Vernon. That will have to be approved by the Board of Ed before they can look at our articles. If that is the case and they approve the articles of agreement, petitions for board members will be available on September 21. Those petitions will need to be returned to the town clerks by October 2. So it's a very
Which is a
short.
Monday.
Right. It's a very short turnaround. So our hope is that if people are interested in running for the board, that they know it so that they're ready to jump on it.
so then when would this board start meeting? Since we're talking about it doesn't have to be done until 2019, 2020.
You said October 2nd is when they need to be back in?
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted, so I have a timeline to give to somebody, or could you have Barb send out a copy of that, so we're all,
Yes.
She can.
yeah, just.
So before we get into that, part of this conversation needs to be about, as I said earlier, getting the word out to people that they can run for this. So I do want to build into this conversation any responsibilities some of us might have with writing articles, posting information. Okay, but do you want to continue with the
Sure.
time?
So if we are scheduling the vote for November 7, the warning window is between 40 and 30 days. 40 days is Thursday, so that's between Thursday, September 28th to Sunday, October 8th. So within those days, it will need to be merged. It will need to be warned, the merge vote. Petitions, we already said, turned into town offices no later than 5 o'clock on Monday, October 2, which is the 6th Monday before the vote. And then we must have informational meetings in each town, minus Vernon, of course, within 10 days of the vote. So the 10th day, if you count backwards from November 7th, the 10th day is October 28th. I know that in Guilford, we already decided that we need to do it on November 6th, which will back up against a school board meeting. I think last night in Brattleboro, we decided we would do it
Wednesday.
on November 1st. Dummerston has not, and Putney have not decided when they'll do those informational meetings.
Putney, I'm hoping is gonna be the 2nd.
What was that date that it had to be done by, Laura?
It has to be done between October 28th and November 6th, which I suspect will mean a special meeting for Dummerston unless you want to meet on Halloween.
I will.
Well, it's a study committee meeting.
When?
Yes, but it needs to be in Dummerston.
Yeah, oh, yes, yes.
So it doesn't have to be a Dummerston board meeting.
Right, it
Right.
does not have to be in Dummerston.
Yeah.
And that's a clarification too, does that mean that every study committee member is expected to be, how are we gonna?
Well, so we've done this sort of thing before, so ideally as many can go as possible. And we'll have to schedule it like we did last time.
So the expectation would be for each one of your hometowns, that board would be there, those representatives.
Yeah,
would be
the
there.
expectation would be you attend at least one of them.
So the days, just, oh, well, I guess I don't have to, it's not a Dummerston board thing, so,
No.
you know,
We just-
okay, have at it.
Which basically leaves us October 30th, I would say, if we don't want to do it on Halloween.
Right.
And we don't want to, we could do it on a Friday, November 3, but.
Yeah, but no, we're gonna. So shall we assume Dummerston the 30th?
Maybe you could make it a Putney town gathering, a party.
What, on the 31st? No.
Come, Russ, come across.
Come dressed as your favorite study committee member.
Yeah, that would be scary.
Or superintendent, or businessman.
Okay, so we're talking about the 30th, the 1st, the 2nd, and the 6th.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Okay,
So-
I'm sure they'll send us that information.
So Guilford is November 6th,
Yep,
Brattleboro is the 1st,
okay.
Dummerston is October
I
30th,
can't remember who does it.
Putney
No, it's
is
not.
November 2nd.
We've always, yeah, we did the, we're gonna review this.
Review the
Because it
dates.
was the Vernon vote that we had, yeah. So it might be, have to be the board that warns the meeting. But we're gonna look into this,
Meaning who,
sounds like, because it's a vote.
the question is, who has to
I
call the
believe
meeting?
it's gonna be the school district board has to have the public information.
Okay.
Because the school district board is warning this article.
But the school district board will not be able to present the articles.
Yeah,
So we're gonna have to look into this. It might be 2 meetings.
Within 10
Right.
days? Before the
Well,
vote?
that's what we've
We could
already-
even do it before, if this committee is not warning, which makes sense.
Yeah,
It could
I'm
be-
certain that within 10 days of the vote, each town has to have an informational meeting.
Right, but
But
it's
whether it's
who has
warned
that.
by the town or the.
Yeah, we think it has to be warned by the
School
School
district.
school district.
Yeah, so we think it's a school district board meeting.
Right.
So we've already taken care of that for
Right.
Guilford and Brattleboro, because we
And
have a
Putney.
board meeting
Yeah.
and
So it's just Dummerston, whether or not they have a board meeting that night.
On the 30th.
And we said 6 PM for all of these meetings, right?
This looks like we do now.
Yeah.
Right?
So we're gonna just further clarify this for you guys,
So
okay?
we're saying 6 PM for all of them?
Yep,
And they'll be done by 8.
oh yeah.
Can I just ask, where do, if somebody's interested in an at-large, does it go to their respective town clerk
Yep.
then? Okay.
Mhm.
They'll be on all the ballots, but they pick up the petition and return it to the.
Okay, so can we start to talk about responsibilities regarding getting information out?
And then the same thing, are we going to do the same presentation at each one of these board meetings? Yes, right?
Yeah, I think, yeah, let's, yeah. So I'm gonna write, if it makes sense, an article, a reasonably short article about where we are as a committee and what the process is, and then it's going to the Board of Ed for their consideration. Does that work for everyone? We need to get good information out to each of the towns about these elected positions. How can we do that?
Or utilize your school, webpage, newsletters, maybe even, I hate to say it, but the Reformer.
So can someone write a blurb about what these positions are?
Sure. I'll write it
Okay.
down.
And then you can send it to us and perhaps post it
Right.
on the WSESU website, and then we can all adapt it as we see fit and take the responsibility of
But I think it's
sharing
good
it with our
to
community.
note in the minutes then
I know, Sean.
where we all intend to have it posted, just so we all get it in the same places in all the towns.
Yeah,
So, what did we say so far? The Facebook page of each of the schools, the school newsletters, the town website, the school website,
town hall,
town hall is good.
our local libraries.
When I just will say that I don't know that Dummerston will be willing to do that because the town clerk had contacted the Secretary of State's office about it and said that we didn't have to, but
So,
there are, the email list is public information, so I can, I can request the email list.
the
and
town
send it.
clerks are going to be having stacks of the articles
Okay,
in their offices.
Okay.
We talked about that,
okay,
so that,
okay,
so I think it's might be a moot issue.
okay, because previously our town clerk had refused.
Yeah.
I think it's,
So,
Okay.
and
can I,
any other
just,
place?
Sean wanted to chime in, do you have a piece of
Yeah,
advice
because
first?
it's kind of related to what you're just discussing. The petitions will be available at the town clerks on September 21st, and 11 days later, on October 7th, they will be due back to the clerks. And you haven't mentioned the numbers of signatures required for the representative from the individual towns, and also the numbers of signatures required for the at-large. So in 11 days, I mean, that'll be anybody that is interested, that's their first assignment, is to get, I think it's 30 from the town and 60 from at-large.
I think in Amy's blurb that she will write, she will put that in. I think is this based on statutes, the 10 days? So I believe we're limited to that.
Yeah, but it would be the number, I mean, if you have 10 days to get 60 signatures, and whether those signatures could come from any of the 4 towns, or whether they have to be just from your own town.
I believe for at large,
Yes,
I believe we discussed this before, and it can be from any of the 4 towns.
that's what I thought too, but if it is 60, it's quite a few signatures
Yeah.
in 11 days.
And
So I think people should be aware of that.
Yeah,
And the other thing, I think it would help to know for the public to know, all the public, what the compensation for the directors will be.
That will be voted on by the new board when they
Right.
determine their budget.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, I thought it was put in there.
We did talk about it and then decided, and we floated some numbers and then decided not to talk about it, as I recall.
And I think we need to clarify when that board starts meeting. So you're running in November of 2017. When does the board start meeting? July of 2018?
The first meeting is in the spring of 2018, according to Donna Russo Savage's report today.
Okay.
And that is not a budget meeting, that is sort of an organizational meeting. There has to be a second meeting by the spring of 2019, so that it's ready to be up and running, July 1st, 2019.
So does 2018 count as 1 year of your term or not, because the board doesn't actually sit until
Good question.
2019?
That 2-year better.
And just brought, like, say, my regular term is up this year, we're gonna have to have the Brown Town School Board for another year.
Yep.
Okay.
And I believe the answer is, it starts, the board forms November 7th if this is approved. So it starts that day. And that, I remember this conversation, it was a similar,
Which is why it's 2, 3, and 4 breakdown in the Articles of Agreement, because it tapped on that extra time.
Right.
And
There
then-
is really no reason to have a 1.
Right.
And then just to clarify your question, Sean, regarding the returning your petition to the town clerks, the law is the 6th Monday prior to the vote, so that, I don't know if you had that, October 2nd is what Lyle had shared, did you have that?
I think that's what was mentioned.
Yeah, okay, I wasn't sure if you
My
mentioned
town clerk mentioned that. so-
October 2nd, yeah.
What I didn't say, and you might want in the notes, is early ballots will be available not later than 20 days before, which is Wednesday, October 18th.
Okay, anything else about the schedule?
So did we come up with a comprehensive list of where we're each responsible to get it out to?
We can do that right now. That usually takes a lot of time to talk schedule with each one of us.
I'm just wondering if it wouldn't be appropriate to, whatever is written up, that, you know, for information, goes to each one of the, secretaries of the school and have them put the information to the different websites and, you know, copy and paste it to, you know, the appropriate places. That way it's ensured that it's being done and it would be a quicker expedition of information.
Have those school secretaries?
Yeah, I think that would be a quick expedition, you know.
Does that work, Lyle?
I mean, it doesn't seem like it would take that long to do, copy and paste 3 different places.
Right, I just wanted to get us all to have the same list and the expectations, so that's why I was listening off.
We can ask Barb to distribute them.
With a
Okay.
note saying what we'd like you to
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
If it's written by all of us, or one person from here, it sounds like Amy's got that, and then it goes out to Barb, who sends it to the schools, and we ask
And
them
then
to
the town
do.
clerks also.
Yep.
And we ask them to do it to these things. In the case of Brattleboro, I think it should also go to the town representatives by email. Do you all have that in the other towns?
No.
Representatives? No.
Well, you don't have representatives, but do you have any way to get out to your towns and any
Mhm.
email lists?
Yes.
I mean, the town clerk has the list of the emails for Guilford. I mean, I don't know them all off the top of my head, but yes.
So that would be a good place to get it out to.
And in Brattleboro, we'd be asking the town clerk to send it to the representatives, that's all.
Yeah.
Because we don't have a town
It should-
email list, we just
it
have
should-
a town
If
representative.
it's being voted on by Australian ballot, it should go to every.
Well, we
It
don't
should go
have
to
that
everybody,
list.
yeah, but
Do we have that list? I don't think so.
I don't think there's an, I don't think there's a,
That's why I'm
there's not a
asking
voter
what-
list in Brattleboro.
Right, that's why, I don't know what you guys have in the outlying towns, but that's
We don't
cool.
have like everyone's email in Guilford.
Another good resource would be front porch forums.
Forum.
Okay. Do we, if people have their schedules, I can certainly take notes as to which
Which
few meetings you can commit to. So why don't we start with the 30th, which is in Dummerston? Who of us can be at that meeting?
I'll be there.
October 30th, I'll be there.
Okay, who else?
I can do that one.
Anyone else? Okay, well, let me know if you can, because after this, we're gonna talk about what we're going to present, assuming it is us. The first, which is a Wednesday?
I'll be there. In Brattleboro.
I could do that too.
Okay.
Which school is your meeting at that night?
I don't know. We rotate around, so I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's why I didn't know if you had it in your schedule already.
We talked about it last time, we weren't sure, but usually when it's like that, we do Academy because it's got bigger parking,
Okay.
so we'd probably be there.
Okay, Putney on the 2nd. Come on, folks, come on.
I could do mine.
Okay. And the 6th, which is Guilford.
Guilford will.
I like to go.
Well, Beth and I will be there definitely.
I'll go. I like to feel at home with Guilford.
We're easy and laid back.
No one yells at me. No one
So
yells at
Ian,
me.
which 2 are you going to?
Hang on, I'm looking. Can't do the 6th, I'll have to do Putney
Okay.
in a second.
Ricky, which 2, remind me which 2 you're doing?
Brattleboro and Putney. And I could possibly be at the Monday one. I can't be at the 6th, but
I'd say either
neither
Beth
can
or I
you.
would be.
Right, because it's
Monday.
Christina, what you
that's what I
do?
that's what I was looking at.
I can be the
I thought I was gonna go
Bradford
to that one, and I was like, oh, no, can't do that one.
Amy, you're doing a couple of them, right?
Yeah, I'll go to all of them.
Okay, as will I. Which can you do?
I probably, I mean, I know I can be there on the 30th, I can't speak for Beth, she didn't give me specific
Okay,
dates.
the 30th and which one? What else?
And
Oh, and
I'll
the
be in
6th.
Guilford,
Yeah.
yeah. And,
Jill?
yeah, email Beth and she can confirm with you.
Okay, I just want to, Jill, you're doing what?
Guilford.
And Brattleboro. Kim?
I know I could probably do Putney, and I'll try to be at all of them, but we'll see.
Okay, excellent, thank you guys.
So is there any one other that's left without anybody there, or are you
No.
pretty good?
No, I think we're pretty good, and Richard will be able to go to some of them.
And I think I'm gonna be able to go to Dummerston as well. so
Okay, thank you.
Double check one thing on that.
Great, guys. So we have, a bunch of stuff already done. I think the presentation we've done in the past could be, I think just needs to be reviewed, right?
I don't think there's a whole lot of changes, I mean,
No, we made
Just
some
dates and-
bad ones. And Vernon.
And
Vernon
Vernon.
in question last time was not resolved, I think, the last time we wrote that.
Okay, is anyone able to take a look at that?
I don't even know where it is, who has it right now?
I will find it. Maybe I deleted it.
Why don't, why don't,
The
maybe-
presentation.
yeah, maybe if you find the presentation and just send it to all the study committee members and we can all take a look at it.
That'd be good. Everybody look
Yeah,
at it?
we can't look at it collectively, but
But at least we can look at it individually, if
Yeah.
anybody, and
Yeah.
then one person can be the gatekeeper of any sort of
yeah. Does that work for everyone?
changes.
And
That
I'll
way,
make sure
we
we're
all,
compliant.
we're all on the same page with
We'll
it
do
that
the
way.
meeting well, yeah,
If nothing else, it would give us
Well-
a chance to all look at it one more time
Right.
before we have to go to these meetings.
okay.
So I would recommend that we have it all sent to us, we all look at it, and then instead of having a gatekeeper being for changes, that, do we have another meeting scheduled before?
Not right now, but
those?
we should, we will.
So maybe at one meeting, we could look at
Yeah.
that presentation all
Yeah.
together, because getting the changes would be.
Yep, that
Okay,
makes,
I'll-
that makes
Or
sense.
Put
that
that
specific
as-
meeting just to do changes.
But we
Right.
wanna do that.
That's what we do at that
yeah.
meeting,
Okay,
right? We could do one meeting just on it,
Mhm.
so that brings us to the next meeting.
so. Could we
Yeah.
also talk about the videos that are out there and on YouTube, they're done? We can, I don't know if they need any changes.
I think they do.
Vernon.
I mean, do we wanna bring those back to life?
Well, they're there already, they're not dead.
Right, but we would need to,
I was just thinking of drawing attention and having people realize that they were there as part of the message that goes out
Right.
and referencing it. But if they need to also be updated, we should do that.
Kim, would you be able to review that video
Yeah, I should
Just
be
in-
able to.
with fresh eyes and see what needs to be cut and what needs to be added?
Definitely,
And then-
Vernon needs to be added, there was nothing on the
Yeah.
Vernon part. And
Um,
then do we have, if we need to make changes, do we still have funds? I believe so, because
Well, I think we
it's
would need-
less.
yeah, it was less than we might,
It was less than what we agreed to, so I think we still have funds.
we're in a new fiscal year, but we should just, what do you think, Frank?
Yeah, as far as the supervisory union,
Yeah.
support for public information, yeah.
So do we need a motion to approve some expenditure if we need to make that, or?
Did we do that? I don't think we did that. That's-
We did.
I don't think we
It
can.
I
was
don't
very-
think we can, we're not the
yeah.
supervisory
We
union.
can't vote to spend money.
We had a vote before on how much we could spend on making a video.
But if Frank is using supervisory union funds,
Yeah.
So
then
what did we vote for
it
last?
would be the supervisory union making it, not this Act 46 committee.
But we did it last time, so I'm saying, where does?
I think we set a maximum dollar amount, right? Which was like, what, $500?
And we didn't, I suggest that Kim looks at it and then we see how much work it actually needs.
But then we have to go back to the supervisory union and ask them for advice?
No, I don't think so. I think that what we had an understanding is that the supervisory union supports each district, through that professional service budget that is sufficient for these sorts of initiatives that occur throughout the year.
So then we do the same sort of thing where we say, okay, a maximum of $250 or whatever.
That would make sense.
Now, if we do wanna, when the Vernon vote came up, we did a flyer. I don't know if we want to do that for this vote or not.
I think we have to do
Or-
I would say yes, we do.
Yeah, that's what Alice and
So,
I.
so why don't we get a quote for that? And then we can talk about it and talk to Frank and finance if necessary.
So we would need the mailing and the flyer. Quote.
Are you talking about mailing this out to each home?
That's what was done before. Yeah. So, I imagine we wanna meet.
Isn't there some funding that came in for information that's part of the transitional grant or something?
You can be reimbursed for that, but there is no grant available for that.
But we can be reimbursed only if we merge?
The 150,000 has no restrictions in terms of what
And
costs.
if we don't merge, we spend our own money.
That's right.
So I suggest we meet towards the end of September after what's our 20th, September 20th? When's
What is September 20th?
the
It's
Board
when
of
the
Ed?
state
Board
board
of
of
Ed.
education.
And then why don't we pick a date?
And are you going to that one then?
That's what we're gonna talk about after we pick a date.
Do you want to do the 21st, we have petitions available. So we stick with Thursdays, which we have been done, it'll be the 21st or 28th.
This is the meeting, the next meeting's when we're gonna be looking at the video, if we wanna make any changes, and PowerPoints.
So you may want to do it sooner than later.
Sooner is better than later.
We can meet previous week. Should
You're
we do
talking
that?
about like the 11th through the 15th, that week there you're talking about?
Yes?
Yeah?
How about the 14th?
Can anyone do the 14th?
I will not be available that week.
It's BUHS open house that night.
Oh,
I don't know if that makes a difference.
It does.
Potentially.
The 13th.
Can we do the 13th? I know Beth can do the 13th, usually can do Wednesdays, right?
Okay.
Let me see if we don't have a board meeting?
I gotta figure, I can, oh, the 13th.
No, because it's the 6th and the 20th.
Yeah.
One for you guys.
So,
September
13th is fine.
Yeah,
13th?
okay, let's do the 13th. Location TBA.
that's
Okay.
for 46.
Alice, could I
Yeah.
make a comment about finances before you get off of that?
Why don't you wait just a sec, because we're about to do one more piece of business. So the meeting with the Board of Ed, you're not required to be there, obviously, but
What time of day? All day?
We don't know what time of day. We know
They
that
s-
Vernon's
pretty much
gonna
all
be
day
first,
is what you
but
want.
probably you'll want to, when we think about 2 hours plus to drive there and 2 hours to drive back.
Are they gonna ask us anything, or are we just gonna watch? We never know.
So it's
I can do it.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want a bunch of us or what.
it's not whether I or we want, it's up to you guys. I think it would be helpful for at least a couple of us to be there, but not necessary.
I will be there.
Okay.
Is
All
it
right.
possible to get them down here, because I know that they met other places before, and Marlboro's on the same day.
That would be excellent. And
We-
Vernon is on there too, so
We
let's
can
talk
ask them.
some stuff.
Is there any excellent
Tell them that it's
suggestion?
really pretty down here. That's
Okay, so I'll let you know about that, but obviously we're having the meeting the week before, so. Okay, anything else for tonight before I open it up to the public?
I just wanna run through in my head one more time the way this lays out then. So we have the board, I forget the exact date, but anyway, the petitions go out, petitions have to come back.
Petitions go out 9/21. They have to be returned by October 2nd by 5 PM to the respective town clerks.
And so during the month of October, we have the publicity going out to all the schools, the flyer going out to all the voters, the videos redone and being able to be looked at. And then by the end of the month, the October 30th is the first meeting that we start doing in each town with the Act 46 committee.
Do you have this piece of paper?
We need, that's why I said if you could send that, have Barb send it to all of us, that would be wonderful.
And then we all vote on
The
November 7th. And if it's successful, the new board starts as officially, immediately the board, but they have to meet sometime before.
In the spring
In the
of
spring of
2018.
And then
To
again.
organize.
And so all the rest of our boards continue to function and work.
Yep. Mhm.
And then we have town meeting with the budget continues to be as it is.
Yes.
And so the way town meeting is gonna change would not be until March of 2019.
2020.
19.
I know 2020 because they would be up and running
Oh, right.
Yeah, that would be it.
in
No, but the
July
budget
1st,
But the,
2019.
but
The
budgets would
budget
have to be approved
in
before.
March in
19.
order to
Right.
be, so the town meeting in March of 2019 is gonna have to be a different town meeting
Well, the town meeting is gonna be the same, the school district meeting.
portion of the
Portion.
town
Yeah.
would be different already in 2019.
Yeah.
So we would have one more year as it is.
Yes.
And they would not, it would be after the vote. I think I have it clear.
On the question of compensation, can we assume that that first year would be uncompensated since there is no budget?
I would assume so, but.
And you're only meeting once?
Once.
Right.
But that seems strange to me too, that you put together a board theoretically with the idea that they have enough time to get up and running. Shouldn't they start to be a part of at least some of the board meetings that are going on, or should there be any
Ideally, I would
expectation?
think that they would attend the meetings that are going on, so they're up to speed and ready to go with their feet running right from the beginning. That makes sense to me.
Yeah.
And I think that would be probably what the discussion is going to be over the next year or so.
But when somebody's running for the board, we're not telling them that. We're just saying you're running for a board that will meet once in March.
At
I don't
minimum.
think so, it's just a minimum,
Yeah, it's a minimum.
yeah. But I
You're
would
taking things
assume
too
the boards will
literally.
meet a lot more than
Yeah.
So I'm just saying that I think our publicity about that should be upfront, because if
Well,
I see it and I say, oh, I want to
Amy's
run for the board.
writing the blurb on that.
Yeah, but I mean, it's obvious to me that those two required meetings are a minimum. I agree united
But
with
they're
that.
gonna,
And the first one in the spring of 18 is an organization meeting, so that group will decide on how often they're gonna
Move
meet
forward.
between spring of 18 and spring of 19. I would assume that
But we aren't gonna-
that group would make that decision then about, okay, we're gonna get together monthly, we're gonna do, this is what we're gonna do, and start sending an agenda, I would assume.
Yeah, and so we don't have any, like, way of saying we also expect you to be participating in your local boards?
So Chris Leopold, again, said, we need to be careful how much we're telling this new board what they have to do.
Yep.
That's their responsibility to come up with their governance structure, decide when they're going to meet, all of that, the
Yep.
compensation issue, so that it can be put into the budget for the next year. So we shouldn't be making all of those decisions.
Okay, thanks,
Can I
guys.
just make a quick suggestion to that point, because to Jill's point, only one meeting, and Frank's point, there'll be more. It says one meeting to occur in the spring, and one meeting, so should that say at least one
At least
meeting?
Where does it say that in the articles?
On top of page 9, the underlined Donna Russo Savage language.
Does that refer just to the annual meeting?
Yes,
Yeah.
and I'm reading Donna Russo Savage's things. Again, there will be 2 annual meetings for
I
which the
see,
board will have
okay.
to prepare.
Okay, anything else? Because I'd like to open it up to the public if we're good? Everyone's good? Okay, Sean, and then I know Jody Normandeau, and then Paul Normandeau. Sean, I just kept seeing you, but then you would
Yeah.
not raise
No,
your hand, so I assumed
thank you
were
very
good.
much. I think all of my 7 questions have been answered, but I, just on the discussion that you just had about the unified board and so forth, that it would have to create its own entity after it was voted in, but it seems like there could be a lot of legwork, maybe from the central office to, I mean, a group of people getting together as a board, and if you don't really have structure, then I think it would be very beneficial to go to the structure that needs to be answered, and maybe that could be from the central office.
I assume that's part of what Frank and I would be doing in that first organizational meeting, is bringing some examples of here's how we can organize as a board, and that would be one of our first discussions.
Yeah. Otherwise, it'd be a little nebulous. I mean, we're just the first time, and some people have never been on a school board before. You know, it could be a difficult transition.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Paul and then Judy?
Okay. Thank you, Paul Namando, Dummerston. I have a question and a comment. My question is, was there a new agreement between BUHS and Vernon since the one that was made public through the study committee back some time ago? Is there a more
Very first one?
is there a more recent one?
There is, but it's only the dates that have changed?
Yeah, really, it's only the dates that have changed, because we had already done that once, but then with Act 49 and everything else, but it essentially was the same agreement with the exception of the dates.
Okay. Is it possible that I could get a copy of the latest one at some point? Oh, okay. Then my comment is sort of a question comment, but it revolves around the Vernon vote. My understanding was that and I don't know how their article was worded, but my understanding was that Vernon voted to withdraw. And I don't know if it was subject to the formation of a unified district, or contingent upon. And if not, and I don't know how the people in Vernon, these are all questions, but I don't know how they felt about it when they cast their ballot. My understanding from the vote was that they withdrew. They voted to withdraw. They've got an agreement to withdraw, and it didn't have anything to do with the formation of a unified district. And so can somebody clarify that for me?
What I understand on that is what they voted on, but they left themselves a lot of wiggle room so they can actually withdraw whenever they want, so that they can see what else is going on.
So was that vote, that's why I'm saying I didn't see the article. Is it voting contingent upon or subject to,
I hate to answer that question since they're not here to answer it, but, I mean,
So
Frank or
we-
Lyle could give a brief.
Frank and I have both met with the Vernon board. There is no date by which the voters agreed on. There's no date in the warning.
right?
So,
So
when
what
we
was
met,
the language of what they voted on?
should the Vernon Town School District, a member of Brattleboro Union High School District Number 6, vote to withdraw from the Brattleboro Union High School District pursuant to the provisions of 16 VSA subsection 721A as amended by section 5 of S.122, approved by the 2017 session of the Vermont General Assembly.
Yeah.
Very vague.
So that says to me that they voted to withdraw, period.
Right, but that also is what they explained, that they voted to withdraw
Yeah.
with these parameters, which leaves them open to
What-
pulling out any time up until.
Well, I don't know. I guess that's what my question is.
Thanks. Judy?
Hi, Jody Normando, Dummerston. First of all, before I make my comment, I want to say that there was a really great article, Lyle, on you in the Commons today. And nobody else has mentioned it. I hope everybody sees it because it was a good article. Thank you. My concern has to do with study committee financing. And according to Title 16, Section 706A, you get $20,000 of the grant, and you're allowed to spend up to $25,000, and I don't know where the other $5,000 comes in, but after $25,000, you have to go back and get the votes of each town school district. As of June 30th, according to the central office, you have spent $25,861.46. And you've had a couple of meetings and a couple of BCTVs and everything since then. So it looks like you've all gone way over your, as according to the law, according to this title, you have gone over your budget. And I was just bringing that up to you because it very explicitly states that in that 706A.
I would not be surprised if we went over our budget a little bit. Do you have anything to add, Frank?
No, I think we want to also make sure we separate the cost specifically for the Vernon withdrawal, because that's really, it is independent. I think it's happening concurrent with the study committee's work, but it's really independent of that, and some of those costs are associated with the work that Brattleboro Union and Vernon.
They weren't in the cost that I received. And because this is all, well, it's all legal, it's legal and it's other things. And I also have a question about how legal it is to take all these expenses out of the SU without an SU vote, board meeting, or other school districts voting on it. I think it's just, you're just using the SU as an open purse. And I really, as a taxpayer, don't appreciate that. And so I think you ought to take a look at what you're spending.
I would just suggest that every board is represented from the folks here, and so they're also the same board that is represented at the supervisory union meeting. So there's a lot of awareness in terms of the activities of the study committee and the extent to which funds are utilized.
This study committee does not have any fiscal responsibility for the SU. I don't care whether they're registered here or not. I think you're really pushing the limit on that.
Does anyone have any response to Jody, or?
Well, just, it occurs to me that besides what Frank says, that we're all here and aware of it, and we know the money is going out, it's a mandate that we had to look at this. So I don't know how you comply with a mandate without incurring the expenses that we have. I don't think we've gone out and spent wildly. If we've spent $25,000 over 2 years, and how many times have we had to call the lawyers and get clarifications on things? I don't know. It was mandated. To me, that means you have to do it as frugally as you can. I mean, nobody's paid any of us extra time, so.
And luckily, we're almost at the end of the process, and the voters get to consider whether the articles of agreement are worthy for moving forward.
I think I
And
might
we've worked
check into
hard.
the legalities of this.
Yeah, thank you, Jody, thank you. Does anyone have anything else to offer? No, okay, thanks.
Sorry, I don't normally
That's okay.
speak at the meetings I'm covering. Just a point of clarification. I had in my notes, and I went back and checked on my recording. When you guys voted to send up the articles, your motion was to send to the Agency of Education. And I wanted to be sure, especially for my reporting, that is correct. Did you mean to say Board of Education or the Agency of Education?
Well, it goes to the Agency of Education, and they pass it off to the Board of Ed.
Oh.
But certainly,
Either way, it goes.
yeah,
Thank you.
but that's worthy of taking note. Do we need to review that?
Everything that goes to Donna Ruza Savage, she prepares everything to, she's the one that ensures that we're on the agenda, prepares all the materials that go to the Board of Education, so.
Okay, thanks. Any follow-up? Okay. The
I
last,
just want
yeah.
clarification that we talked about the Vernon withdrawal vote, and they withdrew from the BOHS District 6. What's the relationship to the WSESU exactly?
We give them services through academic coaches, curriculum assessment,
They'll no longer be available once the withdrawal is complete, is
Correct. So they're not withdrawing until they know for sure that they have to.
And that's one of the
what
things
they're
that we talked about with Vernon, so that we have time to ensure that we've worked out agreements between Vernon and WSESU if they still want to contract with us for our services.
But that's up to the Board of Ed.
If the Board of Ed lets them do that, correct?
One more, Alice.
Mm-hmm.
This goes back to a question I asked some time ago, but if Vernon has not withdrawn from the BUHS district, and they are still part of the supervisory union, still part of the BUHS, how come they're not part of the vote, either as advisable or necessary?
As this.
Yeah, I understand what's happened, but I mean, I'm just looking at the, are they in or are they out? And if they're in, seems they should be in all the way. If they're out, they should be, as my understanding is that they were out. And that's what the town wanted to do. And so, but if they're out,
Well,
why are they in?
I think to maybe try to answer your question, I think there's two pieces to that. Is that they're kind of out from BUHS until they know what's going on, but they have chosen to be out of the study committee and the process of merger, which is a separate out that they made the choice to do. So those are two separate events that happen concurrently, but they've made the choice to be out of study committee. Am I getting this right? They chose to be out of study committee and out of merger conversations. They have asked not to be in the Articles of Agreement. They don't want to be necessary or advisable. They don't want to be part of that process. Being in or out of BUH number 6 is a kind of a separate piece, but it's connected. So it's two different things.
I understand what you're saying, but this goes back to the Hotel California analogy of once you're in the study committee, you can't get out.
So there's no listed.
I can answer.
Yeah, and then we're gonna move on.
The agreement that they have with BUHS is that they will be leaving no later than, is that January 1st?
June
30th.
30th, 19.
19, yeah. The point when the school district will dissolve. So they don't get a vote on the dissolution of the school district because there's an agreement that they will no longer be part of the school district at that point in time.
Okay.
Thanks, Ian.
I just looked up 706C subsection B, and the study committee shall transmit the report to the secretary, so that's correct. There's no question about sending it to the board of
Agency,
Ed.
yes.
Well, the secretary of education, yes.
Which is
what
the
agency
agency's
is.
education, yeah. Okay, we have one more piece of business, which is to approve the minutes. Is there a motion?
July 18th.
I make that motion.
Second.
Any discussion? I would thank you for your excellent minutes again, Amy. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed or abstentions?
Abstain, 'cause I wasn't here.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. All right, can I see you in, what, a couple
Motion
weeks?
to adjourn the meeting?
Oh, right.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?